Hello and welcome to this week's edition of The Ref Show. I'm standing in for Alan Biggs this week, who has a well-deserved holiday after a long Premier League season. But we do have some regulars in the studio, former Premier League referee Mark Halsey and former Premier League player David Hirst. And our topics today are this. FA Cup final, first of all. We'll see whether moss has grown on Halsey, and we'll go into detail on that in a few moments' time. John Moss's appointment as the FA Cup final referee. We'll see whether Martin Atkinson performed well in the Europa League final and whether he could spell Dnipropetrovsk by the time he left Warsaw last Wednesday night. And also we'll be looking ahead to the MLS in the summer, given that the European season is coming to a close. But first of all, FA Cup final day. And firstly, Mark, I'll put this question to you, given that you've been there. You refereed a League Cup final at the new Wembley back in 2008. You refereed Chelsea-Tottenham, so a lot of history between the two clubs. What preparation would John Moss have had ahead of that game? What would he have done maybe differently to a standard Premier League game? And how much does it play on your mind that you're doing a game of that magnitude?
I think it would have been, like myself, you just treat it as a normal game, but obviously you're a little bit more excited, a little bit more nervous. Obviously you travel down to London the day before and you meet up with your team. You have a meal in the evening and you're just talking about things and about the game and you're looking forward to it. You come down to breakfast. I mean, talking about myself, I couldn't eat. All I had was a bowl of porridge. Before any game, all I'd eat was a bowl of porridge, and that's all I had for the whole of the game. But you just hope that things go well. You hope that the ball runs kindly for you, and you're not aware of cameras. You're not aware. You don't think about live TV. It's just another game with different surrounds, you know. But as I say, you just hope that you're thrilled that you got the game, obviously. As I say, you just hope that everything goes to plan and no one's talking about you after the game. That's what you want.
Is that a similar thing for you, David? You played in the '93 FA Cup final for Sheffield Wednesday.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, like Mark said, you go down there, you know it's a big game, but at the end of the day, you've got a job to do. He's got to keep the lads in check, and we've got to be out there trying to win a game. So it is a big game, but it's the same decisions that you're making every week in, week out. You can't start saying, well, I'm going to be a little bit quicker with the cards, or I'm going to, really bust a gut in the first 10 minutes to get things right. He's got to run the game as he sees it. And
you just have to be careful that you don't referee the occasion. You're refereeing a game of football. Yeah. You're not refereeing the occasion. And I think we saw a little bit of that in John Moss on Saturday.
That was my next question. Just in general, we'll go into the nitty-gritty in a moment, but his overall performance in that game. And we know that you were critical of the appointment in the first place, but what do you think of his overall performance?
I mean, listen, people had a little dig at me saying I was very critical of overcritical of John's appointment. Listen, he's a good lad. All I was saying was he the right man for the job? And with his experience, in my opinion, no, because he's done what, 90 Premier League games in 4 years. He's never been trusted with a big Premier League game, so his experience for me, he wasn't the man for that job. Now maybe in 3 or 4 years' time, then perhaps it would have been it's different. But going on to that, I think it was an easy game. It was an easy game for him, but I just felt at times he made it difficult for himself.
Your general sort of overview of that game, John's performance.
To be fair, looking at it as a player's point of view, I mean, I didn't think he had that bad a game. I mean, obviously there was a couple of decisions that he missed, but I thought the game worked for him. He couldn't have stood any stronger about the game. It was a situation of, Arsenal ran away with it a little bit, albeit with a couple of decisions that we'll talk about in a bit. But no, I thought he got through the game. I don't think there were too many shouts about him. So yeah, all round, probably a 6.
A 6.
Out of 20, that is, by the way.
Yeah, I've got to say, I would most probably agree with the 6. But like you say, you say there was no problem with him from the club's point of view. But I think, like you say, that there was a couple of decisions in that game. Had it been a lot closer,
exactly, yeah,
I think we would have seen a different outcome from Tim.
You'd understand if Villa came out and had a bit of disappointment about the referee. Arsenal, on the other hand, I'm going to say, no, the fella did a great job.
See, in those games, I always say it's all about these games, any game you go and referee, it's all about managing the occasion, managing the game, managing the players, managing the event. But there are some instances during a game that you can't manage, and you just got to either show a yellow or you have to show a red.
Well, this is where we'll start, because obviously in most referees' case, you have to manage a situation where you have a challenge that may or may not be a foul. Christian Benteke fouled Santi Cazorla 11 minutes into the game. It was a very hefty challenge. John Moss decided not to book him. What about the following incident, Tom Cleverley on Nacho Monreal, where he did give a yellow card, and then he sort of set his stall out then? Why did you think he didn't set his stall out with 3 minutes earlier with Benteke?
I think that was a build-up. That was a team caution, Cleverley. That was a team caution.
Yeah.
Now, for me, he's got it wrong way around. Yeah. In that 11th minute, that was his opportunity. Any young referee, any referee watching this show, that was John Moss's opportunity to stamp his authority on the game and say, "Hey, I'm in charge. I'm not tolerating those sort of challenges." And that challenge you can't manage, because that was an absolutely nailed-on yellow card in the 11th minute. Now, Tom Cleverley one for me was a bit different.
But you don't necessarily get the Tom Cleverley one if you sort it out with the Benteke.
That's exactly.
And that's where he's, like you say,
right.
sets his stall out. Yeah. Everybody knows in the teams then. Absolutely. We know what we're up against.
Or the Alan Hutton challenge on Alexis.
Yeah. That's right. Absolutely. See, if he, I mean, Alan Hutton had no qualms. That, for me, that was a mandatory yellow card. But if he does the first one, then that tells everybody what his tolerance level is. John Moss set his tolerance level down there. And then
tried to raise it.
And then tried to raise it.
Yeah.
So on that case, for me, it didn't really add up and it didn't work for him. Had he done Benteke, everybody would have known then, and I don't think you would have got most probably the other two challenges.
Towards the end of the half, he booked Fabian Delph for a foul on Mesut Ozil, but you spotted something earlier in the game related to Delph, which had a yellow card been issued then, it could have been a different situation come half-time.
Absolutely. In any game, anywhere, it's a mandatory yellow card. It's a mandatory yellow card, and he's clearly pulled the Arsenal. Delph has he's gone away. He's clearly, I can't remember who the player was, but he's clearly pulled him in the centre circle. And he's gone away and he's pulled him back, and he's not cautioned him. That's another instance where you just can't manage that challenge, and and that's where sometimes we'll come on to players not losing a bit of respect for players, and that's why referees get dissent on decision making. It's about your accuracy of your decision making, foul, non-foul, and that's where players get frustrated with referees.
Which brings us nicely onto the second half. Later in the game, clearly Arsenal dominant in that match. It didn't look like Aston Villa was going to get into it, but 80th minute, challenged by Francis Coquelin on Gabi Agbonlahor. And this is the first of two potential penalty shouts.
In real time on TV, I shouted, I said penalty, yellow card. Yeah. That was
what happened? No penalty, no foul.
No yellow card. Well, even if it was perhaps, as arguments, it was on the line, was it just outside? But irrespective his accuracy of his decision making, whatever way, it's a free kick and a yellow card. And of course, then Agbonlahor gets frustrated because we're talking about accuracy of decision making. The player loses respect for the referee because he clearly knows he's been fouled, and I think everybody else knows he's been fouled. But he's not. His recognition of his offences wasn't.
And that was the big problem of it. Is recognition. Yeah. I mean, okay, is it inside the box? If so, penalty. If it's not, it's definitely a free kick. It's definitely a free kick. And then a yellow card, yeah.
So
and of course, then Agbonlahor gets caution for dissent, doesn't he?
Exactly. So you would be frustrated if you were in his position as a striker.
80th minute, I wouldn't have been on the field. But yeah, of course you would. And like Mike says, that's what the players get et up about. With referees when the decisions are made poorly.
See, for me as a referee, you may get a throw wrong, you may get a corner goal kick wrong, but
you've got to get the big ones.
It's all as a referee today, in today's climate, it's all about getting the big decisions right. Yeah. That's all anybody worries about now.
The second one, Jack Grealish running into the penalty area along the byline, is challenged by Hector Bellerin. Is that a penalty in your view? Because again, no free kick. No yellow card.
I mean, it's a nailed-on penalty. It's a nailed-on penalty, and you just got to look at. You got to say to yourself, if I would say to John, if I was his coach or his manager, I'd say, John, tell me, how did you not see that as a penalty? Tell me, what was you looking at? Why was that not a penalty?
This is a situation, I mean, I've brought it up before on the show, of referees not coming out and being able to explain that situation, why he didn't give it. Because when you sit down and you'll have been in a position where you've gone, I got that one wrong. Now, why did I get it wrong? You've got to turn that round. You've got to understand it yourself. Of course. And we don't see that enough with referees coming out and saying, okay, yeah, I've looked at it again on TV. It was a penalty or it was a free kick. I should have booked him. That was a penalty. I didn't give it. And answer the questions to it. I
agree with you, Hirst. I think in this day and age, I think the time's come now where, we should be looking to do that. I mean, they do it in the MLS. I think Pete Walton does it over in America. He comes out, he comes out and talks about the errors on. I think on ESPN he does. He's got a show, and I think he lets his referees come out and talk as well. But it will never happen over here. Not while we've got the management in place at the moment.
So briefly in summing up, was his appointment justified in the end? Were you proved wrong?
Well, what do you think? You tell me. Was I proved right? Well,
I'll tell you whether you were proved right. Ask Arsenal and then ask Villa.
Yeah.
That'll answer the question.
Well, I'll tell you what. If I show you my Twitter account, I was proved right.
Yeah.
But listen, it's it's a terrific appointment for John, and I'm pleased. To be fair, I'm pleased that. It didn't affect the match, and that he can come away from that and come away with no hassle. So
if that was you with that performance, would you be happy with that performance?
I would be very disappointed. Yeah. I've got to say, I'd be very disappointed if I'd missed the two big key decisions for Aston Villa, and I would be very disappointed had I not cautioned Benteke in 11 minutes. But knowing me as I refereed and. All the players knew what I was like as a referee. I'd give them a chance. I would manage the game, but there are sometimes you cannot manage instances, and that 11th minute challenge was one of them.
Thank you for now, gents. That's the end of part one in the Ref Show, but we'll be back in part two. We'll look at the Europa League final. Martin Atkinson, the English referee, was in charge of that one, and we'll also be looking ahead to MLS. Pete Walton was mentioned there, who heads up the referees in the United States. We'll be analysing one of their performances. We'll see you shortly.